there's going to school to be a teacher, and there's really understanding life and all things science, all things math. Who can do that but God? So I am always in God's face about those things.
You said something. I don't know if you remember this, but last year when you got started, when she started talking about how she was educating kids, she was like doing full on lesson plans for free for families, for children, for like, the whole deal. So she would do a morning meeting with the kids, and we would jump on as well. But when you started out that and you were encouraging the parents, the question you asked the parents was, what if this is the last time or the only time that you will be the only influence in your children's life? What is it that God will have you to pour into them in this time? Really have you pull the covers off of and recognize and realize with your kids, like, and what does he want you to do with that? What skills, what things did you not know?
Yeah, know yourself, right?
that your child was struggling with or really enjoyed, or and that really stuck with me. Not just with this, but just period. Like, having the Lord download or show me things about my kids that I wouldn't recognize on my own will or guiding, because I'm being led by whatever, school or social, like whatever, but allowing him to show me. So what are the things that you have seen in your own kids? Like what are things that God have shown you? Maybe it's a spiritual gift or a talent or ability or something in your kids individually that surprised you, and or challenged you and just made you like drill down, not just education wise, but just like period, just period with your children.
Absolutely. My that's a great question, first of all, and it's been really rewarding and challenging at the same time, but it's been worth it because I don't feel like I'm aimlessly. And this is one of the cons. There are pros and cons, right, to homeschooling and schooling at brick and mortar. And one of the cons of kids going to brick and mortar schools is teachers not being able to hone in on those individual intelligences that our children have, and so and cultivate them. It's like, okay, I didn't know. So and that can be challenging, but it's super rewarding. So my 8-year old, I'm learning, has a deep. That's my 8-year old girl. She has a deep love for spiritual things. She is a lot like I was. And I didn't know before I really got into the whole like homeschooling in the way that God was leading me. And we'll talk about that later, because if you're trying to make your homeschool look like somebody else's, you're going to there's a high chance you're going to be gravely disappointed because you are not raising someone else's children, you're raising your own. So anyway, I when I was just like teaching the way that I feel like, okay, I see this person doing this, I see them doing it, okay, I'm just going to implement. I wasn't able to see these things, but when the pandemic hit and I asked that question, that was a question that God asked me. So I had to really get into looking at what would I make sure my kids knew, or what would I discover about them. So I had to pay attention. And before that, I thought my 8-year old was just like, I thought she was like a smotherer because she was always around me. Like everywhere I went, she wanted to be there. And even when I wanted to just have time like this to myself, she'd be like right there. When I first woke up in the morning, there she was, like everywhere. And I'd be like, maybe I'm not helping her to become more social. So I'm like, she needs more friends. I thought, man, I need to. And God started showing me her, and it was like she wasn't just around me because, oh, I'm mom and she's afraid of the world. She loved being in the presence of the Lord. When I would go in the prayer room, she would be like, I'm not going to talk to you. I just want to sit in here with you. And I'd be like, okay. Or she'd be like, God is showing me some things. Can I talk to you about it? And it would be things that I have been needing help with or having questions about. She's an encourager. She will put things together and be like, Mom, we have to be very careful because often we call people like cartoons will say, "Oh, this person's the god of that," but there's only one God. And we have to really watch that. And just listening to her and watching her, I'm like, this girl is here for spiritual things. She loves it. And the reason that's important is because I was having a hard time getting her to do well in some of her subjects, namely math and reading. And when I realized she was she loved spiritual things, I was able to invite her into a place of prayer, which catapulted her academics. Like she literally would be like, when she felt limited, she'd be like, Lord, I need your help with this. If you help me, if you just show me a picture, I'll have it. I would hear her pray things. And I'm like, it was a whole key, right? It was a whole key to the whole thing. Like we trying to say spiritual is cool. When we get up in the morning, we're gonna read the Bible. Because my girl said, read the Bible in the morning. She's a Christian, she's a homeschooler. We're gonna read the Bible in the morning. But Hannah craved something deeper than just like read it because it's on the checklist. She needed to feel God with her every step of the way. And when she felt confused or maxed out, she needed the freedom to stop and pray or stop and I don't know, meditate. She's just very
tool that you didn't even know was needed. Like you was able to give her spirit-led tools or spirit-guided tools. That wow.
Yeah, and that really made me see each of these kids needs something different, and they need something intentional, and I need myself to pull from heaven's wisdom to be able to impart, right? Even if it's just something as simple as my kids don't get math. Before I get on the phone and call a bunch of people and watch 100 YouTube videos, stop, ask God for the wisdom, ask me to show them, watch my kids, see where they thrive. And for Hannah, that was it. That was a thing. She has really grown and done well academically. And it's not because I like beefed up my academic rigor. It was just like she wanted to be able to pray.
Man, I think that's so amazing that God would show you, her, how he sees her, how he wants to handle her, how he wants to deal with her instead of her having to grow up and trying to figure it out all alone on her by herself. You know what I mean? God has blessed you to give her the tools to help. I think that's amazing.
It's great. It's been wonderful. So that's been huge. The same thing with my son. My son is really big on he's very big on emotional intelligence. He's big on sitting in something with people, acknowledging when they are. This is Noah, the
yeah,
older boy, right? He is really big on uh, all things being connected. So I can't sit my emotion on the shelf while I'm being passionate about math. Like for him, it's all encompassing. In other words, if I say to him, Jerry has three apples and he gave two apples to his brother. Noah wants to know, why did he give those apples to his brother? Did he owe it to him? Was there some sort of
a whole like okay, answer the question. Oh, wow.
Noah wants to see people, things, animals. Are they upset? Are they in a good mood? Do they, for him, uh, language arts and math and reading and science are all subjects about life. And he wants life to be included. He can't take like, oh, you 20 plus 30 plus, oh, is this is that. That's cool. And you can get him to drill facts later, but initially he wants to know, what are we doing? Why are we doing that? Why did this person have this amount and that amount? Why, oh, this person going to the store? He even asks questions, and we talk about social justice issues in stories that aren't about social justice. The youngest boy is the one that I said aloud to the Lord, you're going to raise him because I am tired I didn't know he was coming. Like I just really, and
you knew he would come. You still wasn't really doing much. I'm
I
like,
thought I was sitting around like,
what's happening?
you can sleep in one of their bed. I mean, do I need a bed? I think we might have got the car seat when he was in the hospital. It's so bad.
Away for a minute. I'm like,
Just, initially, y'all, I like refused to participate constructively in motherhood. When I had that youngest baby, I was like,
I'm all right.
but, um, it has been, I mean, so rewarding, such a stretch, but worth it. This young man is just, he is just ready. He is so absent of fear. And he is so, um, he's so go. You know, if you say, here's how you get there, while you're talking, he's like, let's get going. And this was something that I feel like God gave to me as a reward because I battled and have for years battled procrastination. And this young baby is the opposite of that. If you say, here's what we're going to do today, he is literally like, that starts now. So what we doing? Number one, we're going to do that right now. And he loves that. And he loves being very hands-on. He doesn't do well, of course, with just, you know, again, rattling off. But the difference between him and Noah is still very analytical and doesn't want you to put a bunch of blocks in front of him to figure it out. That's not what he wants. He just wants you to tell him or explain to him why we're doing what we're doing. Whereas the youngest is all about show me. I don't understand unless you really show it to me. Blocks or you know, build whatever we're doing science. I want to build it. I want to see it happen from the inside out. I would like, he wants to be hands-on. So I didn't know this about him. I was going through all the trial and error I thought I would do, but then I thought I refused to be like trying to do with him with what I tried to do with Hannah when I saw it didn't work with Noah. So it was like, this baby is going to be the freest baby to learn the way he wanted. And it has been so rewarding, even down to how I discipline him is so different than my other children. And that's controversial because I think a lot of times as parents,
wrote a question down about that because I really want you have children in different age brackets. We didn't even hit that 19.
We hit that older baby. We didn't hit the old because the last will be perfect.
Talk about it. We have to talk about that as well. So
yes. And so he is that one. He's the one that has his own way of doing. He's the one I pray about the most because I'm like, Lord. And I pray like, Lord, I just pray, Lord, you know, this is, you see what, get your back, get your son. I want. And so he's that. Now my oldest girl, she's 19, she's gonna be 20. This baby has been a wonder since day one. Honestly, she is the reason I went into education. She is
I
it.
never knew that.
Yes. Wow. I was in school. I wanted to do a whole bunch of other stuff with my life. I thought I'd sing. I thought I'd sing in French. I thought I'd travel and do the things.
Speaks fluent French.
Oh yeah.
Sorry. Okay, continue.
I speak fluent French. I do, and so I thought I would just have that second language under my belt, and I use that in worship. I never thought I'd do education. It wasn't until my baby was born that I wanted to do education because I didn't trust anybody to keep her. I was so worried about her not being able to tell me what was going on with her that I taught her sign language at like 9 months. I didn't want her just crying. I want her to be able to see exactly what was going on. And she was one of my babies. She was the baby out of all 4 babies that I can't tell you when she started talking because she was talking so young. She was very young, full sentences, the whole 9. And that was intentional because I was so afraid for people to keep her. But I was in college and I really needed her to go to school. And so what I started doing was I put her in daycare and then I applied for jobs at every daycare that she was at. And I worked and worked and worked. And then when she started getting older, it was people was like, you can't just walk into elementary school and be talking about you're gonna be with your kid, you gonna teach, you gotta have a degree. So I decided to get a degree in French to get certified K through 12 so I could work at any school. Now this is not healthy.
Ericka, you have never broken that down to me.
But you can see the journey, right? Like
I
Ericka's been like always.
all of that. I have, yeah. Amen. I've seen it.
Foreign language was the only degree that you could get certified in K through 12.
Oh my goodness.
That and PE.
All right, what language? All right, let's just see what I need to do so I can follow my kid.
Follow my kid through high school. Not good.
French. Like, all right, let's go.
Boom. I like French anyway. We're going there. So that's why I even got into education. Okay. It wasn't until she got to actual elementary school that she told, I worked in her school for the first year, and she said, Mama, I don't want this. I don't want this anymore. And I said, why? She said, because people treat me different because you work here.
Okay. And she didn't want the dynamic of mommy being at school with
her because of that. And so because of that, I went to work in a different district, but I always homeschooled her. In other words, she after school, which I don't know if she loved, I'm sure she probably hated, but after school and before school, there was homeschooling. There was where I felt like things she needed to be taught, I would try to impart, and I would show her that wasn't being discussed in school, that wasn't like a thing. And but after that, and after I started teaching, I apart from her school and having to take my eyes off of her, I realized teaching is actually a passion, and I love it. And more than that, I hated seeing people and children falling behind. So I was teaching middle school, and a lot of people hated it, but I loved it because it's like they're young enough to be babies. They're old enough to be big kids, but they're still little babies. And so you kind of got this thing going. So I loved it. But one day someone came up to me and was like, hey, Miss Ericka, French class, can you help me spell brother? So I'm trying to help them spell brother in French. And they're like, no, in English. I'm like, this is middle school. Wow. And I was in a great school district. I was in the school district that I had gone to, which I was in like in a DSEG program, or for those of you who know that is like you're sent out to a different school from your neighborhood or whatever. So I was doing that, and it was a great school, and they hired me back because they was like, oh, you know exactly what to do. So this person coming up and asking me that bothered me. So I did like a little survey and started doing like little quizzes in my French class to figure out how they would fare on a vocabulary test. And about 75 or 80% of those kids failed an English test.
It's like regular vocabulary.
Your regular vocabulary stuff, like what does this mean and how do you spell it, kind of stuff. And that bothered me. So I started an after school and before school program. And I was getting to work at 6 a.m. School that starts at 8, and I wasn't getting home sometime till 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And my husband was like, what's going on? And I was like, there's so little time. There's 42 minutes to teach French, and I got kids in there who don't know their English stuff, and it just was bothering me. So I kept at that. And while I was there, though, I got pregnant with Noah, and then Tony was like, all those feelings came back, about like not wanting my kid to go daycare. And Tony was like, Ericka, you need to you need to bring it down. People are professionals. They got it. I'm like, okay. Okay. And so he was going in and started to kind of go to daycare. Well, no, yeah, he was supposed to be going to daycare, whatever. But 4 months later, I got pregnant with Hannah. And my husband was like, okay, the amount of money that it's going to cost us to do that. He was like, so I'm about to enable you a little bit, but it's okay if after you have Hannah, you want to come home. Woo! I was so happy because I was really looking at if in 42 minutes I can't get these kids to not only learn what I'm teaching them, but what they should have known years ago. what's going to happen? What's happening with my babies? And I'm not even able to deal with character education.
Lord.
I'm not able to deal with life and all the things. And so I spent that year that I was with no when I was pregnant, I had a younger baby. I spent that year helping to influence the educators at that school, training people to take my position, do all kinds of things because I didn't want them to lose. Like, okay, they had been talking about let's get rid of study hall. Let's get rid of, and I was like, you cannot. Like, you can figure out how to do something better with it, but you can't get rid of it because these kids don't know a lot. And so they started putting actual educators in when I left into the study hall. Because at first it could be people doing study hall that
Study
like,
hall, you just go.
yeah, just go and eat and play with your friends and until it's time for the bell to
But
ring.
there's nobody there to actually educate, or they just was.
They were just babysitters.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So after that, they started putting educators in there, having things for them to do, making sure they understood, making sure they would, if they didn't understand something, they could page another teacher on call to come and help in every subject. So that was something I was able to implement before I left. But I knew after I had Noah, my husband said, like, we probably gonna have to homeschool because all the extra teaching, you're teaching other kids, and then our kids get extra teaching after school because you don't see what he's like. It's just, so.
Come home.
Yeah, so you need to come home. You need to come home. People are like, oh, you have the ability to come home, but it was like the money would have had to go out anyway, because you know how the younger they are, how expensive it is,
Mm-hmm.
and then multiply that times two, and then surprise baby. I mean, we would have been at about $3,000-$5,000 a month. I mean, we got a whole mortgage.
Yeah.
In California, a whole mortgage out of the home for people to have do it. Just saying.
Talk to me, talk to us about the talk. Okay, I know you've been asked this before. You and I have kind of talked about it briefly, but I just want us, and I have two boys too, so just share with us the conversations that you've had. I don't want to even say worries, because there's one perspective of us being in the kingdom, right? Mm-hmm. And then we have the reality that we're born in this skin color that we're in, and there's all these wonderful things God wants to do with us, authentically with who we are for the kingdom of God. So just talk to us about that, the conversations that you've had or discussions that have come up, anything you've been surprised about around that subject.
One of the things that I'm really big about is how we do Black history. Now, I'm only saying that because we are Black and brown people. So how we do Black history is quite different than many people do it. So you have people who do it in February. It's okay, Black History Month. We're going to learn all about our culture and heritage, blah, blah. Or they say, we're going to take this unit, we're going to do Black history. Or after we have finished all of our units for the year, we're going to do some Black history unit studies and the whole thing. And they'll do that at the end of the year. And all of those things are much better than excluding it altogether. But one of the ways that we do Black history in our home is it is included in every single unit that we do. So if we're learning about oceans, we're going to pull the best scientists and experts on the subject, and be clear, we are everywhere, right? We're in it all. If we're talking about kinesiology and movement, we're going to pull the most fantastic people from those areas, and many of them are Native American and African and I mean all kinds of people that do well and that are experts and that know a lot in these areas. So every subject that we study, every story that we're reading, or every unit has African history and all the history mixed all in. So we don't relegate it to one, area. And I think that helps my kids. So my children believe with all their heart that being Black is the most amazing. They're just like,
Mama.
So that is a huge thing. And I love seeing it because I'm not pressuring it more than any other culture, so to speak. They just like, man, Black folks have done some, like my people have done some great things, and they take great delight and joy in it, right? Because it's including everything.
Yeah.
When I am reading some stories, I have to create. Some stories I have to recreate. If I have a reading comprehension curriculum that I love, it's got everything I need, but I'm looking at the names in these books, and none of them have any like African names or Asian names or whatever. I will recreate the story. I will retype it, reprint it, put in a different name. Just
Wow.
yes, I do, because I want my kids to be like, oh, that's an interesting name. I'm like, yeah, and I will talk to them about that. I'll say that name originates from here, and here's what it means, and you'll find children from this region who have those have that name and blah blah, so they can be inundated with even just names, that are just different. So I will do that. So that takes a little bit more work, but it's worth it because it's a balanced education, right? So talking about that makes it really dealing with education that way makes it easy to flow into conversations about the talk and about racial inequality. One of the books that my children and I are reading right now. Now my kids are 9, 10, and 4. My oldest baby is in school and out of doing her whole thing. And she made me, Miriam made me read to her. My oldest baby made me read to her until she graduated
What?
high school. She
Wow.
made me read to her. It's just that every book had to be a book out of her reading, like a range that she wouldn't ever read herself. But she always wanted me to read to her. And she told me when she graduated, do this with Hannah and Noah and Ezra and don't stop it. It helped me. It helps me know words that I should have even known, helps me on my testing, all the things. So my children are reading now. My 4, 9, and 8-year are reading this book, The Myth of Race by Robert Wald Sussman. And it is a fantastic book that talks about when races were developed, the idea of people discriminating against people based on their race. When that started, it's actually a very new concept of that idea. Before that, it was like, okay, human race. But when people wanted to organize people and figure out, okay, wait a minute, when they were doing the Protestant Reformation, all that, okay, wait, and Constantine was doing his thing. How will we know if people are Christian? There's Christians in all colors. Okay, we need to find a way. If they're the darker they are, maybe the closer they are to darkness. And the lighter they are, the more they are to the light. And so maybe we will, lighter people are probably Christian and darker people probably aren't. And it started this whole thing. And so we're talking about that. So those are things that are woven into everything, so that when something happens, like there's a shooting or there are things like that or whatever, my kids are not pulling ideas out of thin air about trying to process that. They are actually making connections based on what we've been learning about the whole world, all of their homeschool life. So one of the things I can say that has shocked me recently was, I said this on a different platform. My son, last week we were doing a reading comprehension lesson, and the reading comprehension lesson said it was about it was trying to talk to him about the purpose of an author's writing. Do they write to persuade, to inform, or to entertain? And so we were reading this story, and it was about 2 teenagers that love to go to the mall. They enjoy it. It's fun. They go every week. They ask their parents to take them every weekend. But when they get there, they just try on clothes and leave. But they ain't got no money to be buying everything. They try on clothes, have fun, they leave. So as is their custom, they wanted to go to the mall. They get there, and their favorite store couldn't be shopped in because there were 2 police officers who were standing more at the entrance, and they were going through the backpacks of some other teenagers. While they were going through their backpacks, they found stolen merchandise. They placed the teenagers under arrest, and they took them out of the mall, indicated they would probably take them to jail. The narrator of the story said, me and my friend realized in that moment that we said to each other, we will never steal anything. We will never. And so I said, well, I asked the questions that were already available with the story. Tony, Noah, why do you think they wrote these? To persuade, to inform, to entertain. he said, I think it was to persuade us not to steal. I said, great, observation. And then another question was like, did you see anything in it? Did you feel anything? Did it elicit any feelings? And Tony Noah was like, well, fearful. I was afraid when I saw that there were cops there. I got afraid, wondering like, oh man, what was going on? What happened? Did someone get hurt? The whole thing. And then I inserted a question that was not there. So again, I didn't ask if he knew the race of the thieves, because we're reading about the myth of race and how we have to understand and need to begin to understand that where life began, on the planet, and why, and what, um, which type of melanin skin can reproduce other shades and all the things. So I asked him, do you think you know the skin color of the thieves, of the people that were found to be thieves? And he said, I do. I said, how do you think you know? No, he's not. How do you think you know? The story told me. I said, no, it didn't. I went back. He said, yes, it did. We would kind of go back and forth. He's that guy. He's the arguer. So I go back. I'm reading through the story. I said, no, it says nowhere here. And he says, the story told me that the thieves were white because they were arrested and taken away. Nobody was shot. Nobody was whatever. And I was just like, my mind was blown. He was just like, yeah, he said it very matter of fact, like, whoa.
Duh, mama.
Yeah. And I thought, and at first I was thinking to myself, okay, if he says that the thieves were white, I'm like, maybe it's shifting this narrative. Maybe it's shifting this narrative of, them putting things on the media and all that only black and brown people steal. So I'm like, okay, homeschooling is good. I'm all in a whole different area. And he's like, no, I can tell by how it resolved. And I'm like, no. So I'm thinking, I never taught that. But they're able to make connections with, okay, here is how things go in our society. Here's how whatever. So having the talk is a lot of like seeing humanity, having discussions about fear, how fear causes you to behave, um, um, letting them see how fear has caused them to behave in certain circumstances. If I think that mom is giving another kid in the house or my brother or sister more attention than me, and I act out and I cut up with them, having discussions over time that what's really happening. What are you afraid of? Well, I'm afraid you may love them more than me. Okay, now we can get to the bottom of what it is, right? And so this is that critical thinking that has to happen over time, so that when you're having the talk, your kids don't think God created a whole group of monsters that don't like people, like a certain group of people. Like, it gets weird. It gets where people start thinking it's a personal thing, and that maybe it is about skin tone, and you don't want to, in an effort to keep race, in an effort to be anti-racist, you don't want to promote racism. Like, I don't,
because then you can be mad, angry at the other, what I'm saying? Like, just naturally as a human, like, okay, I ain't fooling with nobody with that color no more. You know what I mean? So that's amazing.
Right. So we have those conversations regularly, and Noah's fiery. He's fiery. He's like, him and Hannah both, but Noah he's fiery. He's gonna ask those direct questions. He's going to, he's big on that. So I have to make certain that when I'm educating him, I'm keeping the humanity piece. I am vehemently opposed to calling humans by things other than their names. Even people that we don't, like with our most recent presidency, and people calling him, out of his name all day. If you think about some of the biggest systems of oppression in this country, they've been ushered in by the dehumanization of human beings. If I can call a woman out of her name, call her something she's not, or whatever, then she can be victimized, she can be raped, she can be whatever because she's just a, whatever. If I can call a Jewish person out of their name, I can oppress them because they're just a rat, they're just a whatever. I can call this person a dog, I can call this person an ape or whatever. When you start dehumanizing people, it actually ushers in this spirit of oppression. And so I'm against that. So I'm really big on my kids seeing,
like not calling them black, white.
right, exactly. I'm seeing them as human beings, seeing officers even as people with families, with lives, that they have to protect as well. You can be for police reform and still be for Black Lives Matter. You can, I really want to make sure they understand the difference between organizations and people, human beings, systems, and the environment and the world in which we live that God calls us to protect down to the grass, the air. I mean, I don't know. I feel like homeschool again comes from home, where it's not just from home to the group you like. I mean, home is, they say, where your heart is at, and our hearts as born again believers are supposed to be with like all people, right? So that is a dance. That is a dance because sometimes you start telling some of these stories and they're out the thin in the thin blue, or out, out of the blue, out of thin air, I should say. Kids are like, I don't ever want to be an officer. I don't ever want to be around an officer. I'm never calling the police. I'm never going to this school, that school. I don't want to be around that person. Oh, that happened on that campus. Not going to school there. When, you never know, where God will send you or place you or, whatever. So again, that's all part of a continual education.
See how all of it's okay. Like, tell me how the Lord has taught you to discipline one child differently versus another.
Now they're a tad bit older now, so how I discipline them, I can talk to them about it more than when they were younger. So I discipline them differently growing up too, and I can take a second to explain that. But now me disciplining differently requires conversation because they can see how they're being disciplined differently. Does that make sense? So I there's some verbal things that I talk to them about that helps me with that. So let me just go back. I'm going to choose and go up. So my 8-year-old, the Hannah one, the spiritual one, she's very emotional. She feels all the things, okay, or whatever. So for her, it is, she wants to be seen and known. And your discipline of her, my discipline of her cannot be a dismissive, flighty way of doing it. It has to be intentional. It has to make sense with what I am putting out. It has to be something that she feels is intentional. What I mean is the whole chart on the wall where people say all consequences are the same, like do this and you get that consequence, do that and you get that consequence. Here's the thing. Consequences are outcomes that you cannot control. So you can't have a specific consequence for everything, because then the child will feel like whenever I make a mistake as I get older, I'm going to be able to calculate the consequence and decide whether or not it's worth it.
Oh, yeah.
And that just is misleading, because sometimes the consequence don't look nothing like you thought it would look. It's overkill sometimes, but it just is what it is, right? So my children are parented the same in that, for example, when you violate something, we have something called a consequence jar. The consequence jar has a bunch of different things in it, and you have no idea what you will pull, but what's consistent is you will pull from the consequence jar if you violate these X, Y, and Z discussed rules or whatever. Now, as they are older, my children like to protect one another, okay? So they will try to come to me and defend something disciplinary that I have put out for the other child. So this happened recently, and I wanted to get into this. I
Okay.
wanted to get mad because I'm gonna be real. I wanted to get mad because I'm not used to somebody coming to me, a child, and asking me, "Why did you take Hannah's?" Well, it's like, first of all, the
What are
whole
they coming to tell on, and they want you to do something about it. Yes.
Oh, right. So we okay. Real quick, couple things: tattling and telling. There's so much tattling versus telling in my house. Telling is when someone is hurt, when someone is hurting others, or when someone is hurting themselves. Those are telling. They need to tell you, always welcome that. Is someone hurt? Is someone hurting themselves, or is someone hurting others, or hurting themselves, or in danger of hurting themselves, or are they hurting others? They know these questions. So I will ask them when they're running in to tell me. I'll say, calm down for a second. I can see you're terribly upset, and I'm so sorry about that. Let me ask you a question. Has someone hurt you? Have you hurt someone else, or are they? I mean, has someone else hurt themselves, or whatever? Someone. If no one has hurt you or hurt themselves, whatever, physically hurt, whatever, then I'm going to require that you go and work it out with them. If you need someone to sit with you while y'all work it out, we can do that. That's telling. Those three things. Everything else, tattling. She took my shoe. He this, he that.
Okay, we need to set a microphone on this, right? Because Lord, I know mamas and daddies dealing with this.
If you don't want to talk, you can just point. Tattling. Are you hurt? You look fine. Is your brother and sister? Somebody hurt in the room? Somebody hurt themselves? No.
Yes. Okay.
Nope.
Sorry.
Work it out. Why? Because children destroy their relationships with one another by going and tattling on each other all the time. That child feels like, I can't trust you with anything. We don't have a relationship. We are loyal to mom, but not to one another. Here is the byproduct of that, though. Sometimes they become super loyal and tight with each other, and they would try you on the other one's behalf.
Okay, listen, I am the litigator for I'm sitting in the stead. I'm the attorney instead of
no, I'm standing there. I'm an advocate for Noah. So we're at the grocery store 2 days ago. Hannah, it happened to me twice. Hannah wanted a journal and some coloring pencils. The boys got basketballs. As she was seeing them with their basketballs, we get ready to leave the store. She wants a basketball. I said, we had even though we were all together, the boys weren't paying me no attention. So I said to Hannah, I said, now, if you want the basketball, we can put your journal back, but everybody's getting one thing. Yes. She was sad about it. So Noah and Ezra, the baby, asking Hannah, what's wrong? Mom won't let me get my basketball. They both turned to me in the store while I'm paying at the register. Why? I'm ignoring them because I'm paying for whatever. Ezra taps me. Why you take Hannah ball?
Oh, jeez.
Noah like, yeah, mom, like, what's wrong with her having a ball? We have 2 balls. I said, y'all wait till I get out here. The cashier is bugging up. I'm like, y'all wait till I get out of here. I'm going to dress y'all. So I'm doing the thing, whatever, we get outside. We get in the car. I said, guys, we got to run in and get these paper towels. When we get out, I want to talk to you guys, whatever. We get in the store. Hannah asked for, we all get 3 things, whatever. Sorry, Noah asked for something. I said yes to Hannah and Ezra, and no to Noah because Noah has something at home already. Noah knew this. So when we get to the front, Hannah says, how come Noah didn't get a snack? I give her a look. I'm looking. I'm checking out. Noah, and then Ezra like, yeah, I want Noah. So I'm like, we get in the car. I'm like, in the moment, I'm so upset, y'all. I'm so mad because I'm like, I'm not used to nobody. First of all, I don't even like bring y'all to the store with me. This is one of our first times was going together. Usually I leave y'all here, and pandemic and all that, you in and out. So I'm trying to be nice, bring y'all with me. You're questioning me. I don't like the attitude. I don't like the head. Like, why she think? I don't like none of it.
None of it.
But I get in the car and I'm like, on the way to the car, I'm like, Lord, help me to understand why this is bothering me. I don't want a thing where it's like, look, you a child, you be seen and not heard. Like, I didn't like that. That didn't feel.
That's our default. That's right. The default, baby. You are going to be seen and not heard.
It takes absolutely no Holy Spirit to be like, because I wanted to do that. And the thing is, they didn't understand it. And the probability of this reoccurring is high because you're always going to be using what? Discretion as a parent, as is your right, based on what's going on with each kid. So I'm praying. I'm like, Lord, help me. I want to talk to him about this, but I'm feeling angry. I don't understand. He had me to get quiet for a minute. I mean, I'm in the car quiet. They watching me. They don't know what's going on. Like, Mom about to blow it. I guess I don't know. But I feel like the Lord was like, get down to what you're feeling. What are you feeling? I'm feeling angry. Why are you angry? I'm angry because I feel like my stuff is being questioned. Why does that bother you? I get down to, it makes me feel inadequate. Am I inadequate? So then the Lord was like, well, give an adequate response. Tap into something adequate that I know I've given you. Be adequate in your response instead of just you saying, look, don't question me. I'm a mama. I'm grown. I've been around longer than you. Just be adequate. And that led me to say to them, when I say to you, you can't have something, and I explain to you why you can't have it, when your brother and sister ask you, why can't you have it? The inadequate answer is, Mom took it. That's not it. It's because I already have this at home. Or it's because I had to choose between the ball and this or that. I said, so before you guys come and ask me why I gave someone a consequence, I'm always going to tell them why I did it. You go ask them. Do not ask me. Just like that. Do not ask me because I'm not the one with the answer. They have the answer. Ask them. And those of you who are required to give an answer, I'm talking to them just like this in the car, all of them.
Right.
When you're required to give an answer, the reason is not because mama did something. The reason is not because mama won't do it. You know what the reason is. Give them the full reason so they don't have to come to me. So when I said this, they both were thinking, that's true. Both of them were like, nah, Ezra just looking like, look, he just heard me say, don't ask me. So that's the part you hear. You don't ask me. But you other two, you need to give an adequate answer. So that I felt a great peace in that moment. I saw the understanding on their face, like I did know why, like Hannah, like, yeah, I did know why she didn't give me the ball. And I did have to choose. And that's just what I chose. I chose to get my colored pencil or whatever. I couldn't get both. Oh, understandable enough. Both of them understand. All of them understood. You each got one thing. We got the thing. No one knew he had snacks at home. So somebody said this week, and I agree with it. They said, when you are hit with something, your kids do something, whatever, and you're feeling some kind of way, feel, think, with that level of intensity, think, then come back down to where you were with the feel and act. Right? Mm-hmm. Don't act till you come down.
What are we doing instead? What do you feel like parents are doing instead? Or what is your
feeling? Feel. Then after we go too far, we think about it. It's too late. We got to go back and apologize.
And then we think, okay, well, maybe, we have to end up in the hospital this time.
You might have broken, because all of us, every parent, if they're human, has had a moment where they went too far. Have you ever taken time to look at their face when you went too far and they knew you went too far? If you ever took time to look back at their face, I don't think my mom
and get that face out of when I'm talking.
Fix your face. And I love her. She is so. You know what makes me mad about her? You know what makes me mad about mamas? They totally different grandparents. Fantastic, patient. They think. They feel. Then they think. Then they feel. But with us, they feel it. They act even higher.
Yes. Can I take it? Feel, act. Feel, act. Okay, now let me think about
it. I don't think that was the way to handle it.
And I'm not telling you. That's later on.
You would never know. I'm gonna be strong in it, but I'm gonna be strong and wrong. But you don't know at home. In my private time, I repented.
No, nothing.
So we have to do that. We have to, guys. Feelings are not moral. They are amoral. They're not good or bad. They are amoral. Feel it. Let yourself feel it, but then think with a high level of intensity. What's causing me to
Yeah.
want to skip the thinking step and act?
Mm-hmm.
How can I think at a high intensity and then let God give me how to respond?
Yeah.
It will keep you from feeling like you need to apologize every day, because
Mm-hmm.
I've blown it before and looked in my kids' faces and they just like, and one time I blew my top with Noah, and I had ascribed to him a whole reason for why he was doing. He was like, "Mama, that's not at all what I was doing. I wasn't thinking that. I did this because of that." And I was like, "What it looked like?" He's like, "Woman," he was really hurt by me shouting at him, and I was wrong. I jumped to a huge conclusion. So, that's my thing. Feel it. Think with all you got. What are you thinking about? You're thinking about this feeling. Why
Mm-hmm.
do I feel this way? Sometimes this is something that happened earlier and you're taking it out on, you're over responding to what's really going on. So, why am I feeling this? Think that thing through. Think. And then ask God, how do I respond then?
Yeah.
I know what happened wasn't okay, because we struggle with that too. Those of us who are passive parents, and don't like conflict, we'll just let it go. Once we feel it and then we think at a high level, we'll go, okay, I was just being emotional. No, your parental instinct is telling you what happened to cause this feeling wasn't okay. You need God to give you the response. It's
Mm-hmm.
not indifference. It's not, oh, kids will be kids. That will never work. They do need the discipline, but they need kingdom and home and family centered discipline that you can come back from. Not that you're just like, you feel condemnation from, or how whatever. You can come back from that and
Yeah.
apologize and grow and do better. So yeah, I'd say, yeah, you feel it.
Yeah.
Think.
Out. Yes. That's so good.
So yeah, I will say this. You can. I want you to stop. And this is for somebody. This may not be for everybody, but for those of us who are cloaked in what we feel to be inadequacy, we just can't do it. Even if you said it joking, but you've said it to your mind so many times, it believes it.
Mm.
Honey, I can't do it. I can't teach my kid. I don't know how you teachers do it because I can't do it. It sounds funny, it's comical, it sounds like whatever, but the truth is, you have been gifted with the great responsibility and the joy of educating your children, whether you use a textbook or not. You have that. You have that, and you can do it. The anointing for teaching your children is on you, uh, because you have children. How to flow and flourish in that anointing and in that calling comes from God. It comes from His wisdom. You can get what you need from Him. What if you had a very close friend that owned everything, knew everything, and was madly in love with you? Would you waste your time? Would you waste your time going to all these other places to find the answers to this, to that, to whatever, if you knew, like
Yeah.
right beside you, you had somebody that loved you to pieces and back together again, that that um that owned everything and that knew everything? Guess what? In God, you have that.
All
You
that.
have that. And so where you feel maxed out, where you feel like you can't see a way to do it, you can't whatever, God is just masterful at helping you come up with things.
Yeah.
Let God give you what works for you. But you can do it. Stop saying you cannot. Stop saying you refuse to participate constructively in your children's education. Too late. They've been watching you for the longest time. And if you're happy with what you're seeing so far, you have something to do with that. Okay. And oh, I'm a resource. You can find me. I would do anything. I will help anybody because I know what it's like. And I know there's some, in the homeschooling community, we got kind of some elitist stuff, and some folks like, oh, we do it this way and that way. But look, you reach out, you DM me, whatever, you're going to get some help. I love to help people. I love to see people take a step in helping their family.